This week I completed in my Daf Yomi the Babylonian Talmud. The Babylonian Talmud is a major work. It's basically it's 20 volumes on the shelf. It is fundamentally the religious Jews' application of the mitzvahs in the Chumash to practical circumstances. It is by far the most popular work among religious Jews, and it is extensively studied in yeshivas and among the community, far more than anything else. It's primarily a legal work. We're in the form of a debate. They will apply the mitzvahs to practical circumstances, and it's often a discussion and a debate among scholars. That's the basic idea. Now, some of these discussions can be fanciful. I remember once Rabbi Victor Miller was talking about how every Jewish family should be engrossed in Talmud study, and he used the word, it should be the national pastime of the Jewish people. And I thought national pastime, he's comparing it to baseball. That rubbed me the wrong way. And then I thought about it, and I said, no, he's describing it correctly, in that you're supposed to have free-flowing thoughts about that, which at times can be fanciful, unrealistic, even silly. However, through them, you get a greater knowledge of the Chumash and how to apply it to your life. That's the basic idea. Now, you have variations in this. There are a large number of Talmudic scholars. The two that tend to stick in my mind about this would be Rabbi Shimon, who was considered a genius and an exceedingly saintly individual, and the one who had the greatest understanding of the Chumash, and so to speak, the will of God and his providence in this world, and he is greatly revered. His burial, his grave is in Meron, and on Lag BaOmer there's a major pilgrimage there with literally hundreds of thousands of people going there to remember him favorably. He was one of the students of Rabbi Akiva, the primary students of Rabbi Akiva, and another one is Rabbi Yehuda. And with Rabbi Yehuda, he captures the mentality of the religious Jews, particularly the Haredim, and the mentality of, shall we say, the people learning in yeshivas, yeshiva students. And you often have an interplay between them, although this is really only a part of the the discussions in the Talmud, but nevertheless, I pointed out because it tends to categorize you categorize the Talmud, you understand it better. You have any number of scholars, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yochanan, Abaya Varava, that were study partners with Rabbi Yochanan. He said also Reish Lakish, where you have like the discussions between them, Rav and Shmuel. It's really a lot of them. But it's through these ideas that you gain enlightenment. Now, at times, their discussions can seem to be, to many people, to be very tedious and irrelevant and even silly. However, one of the difficulties that you run into with that saying something that is that you'll often run into somebody who specifically likes that. Someone who likes Pilpul and reads additional books on Pilpul. But it's a lengthy lengthy work. It has 2,711, shall we say, folio pages. The paging system is not the same as the one that's popularly used, where you have page 1, and then on the other side of the piece of paper it's page 2, rather than each piece of paper is considered a separate page, and the front side is A and the second side is B. So you have 2,711 of them, and if you do one of them a day, it takes between 7 and 8 years to complete it. In my case, it happens with me. I started with Kodshim. It's that's towards the end. There's 6 general categories in the Gemara, and Kodshim is the 4th. But they are of varying lengths. The final one is Taharos, which is very short. The first one is Zeraim, seeds with brachas. So I started like a year and a half from the end. And the reason I started it that way is that to learn every daf and to actually just read it, and try to understand it can be extremely difficult and extremely time-consuming. It's not unreasonable for a person to spend a whole day on just one daf. In what I came up with was the Steinsaltz daf yomi. It's written by one of his people, and it's in English, and it's basically an essay on the daf, and it only takes about 10 minutes to read, 5 to 10 minutes. In addition to that, he doesn't necessarily focus on the subject of the page. It will always have some nexus to the page, but he might be looking at putting it into a historical context, a discussion of a particular person who is mentioned on the page, or a lot of times you have animals that are unusual, or just what is this animal, or what is this plant, and he may focus specifically on that, and it'll be more interesting, at least for some people, because what may have been on the daf may have been just a categorization of different fact situations and how to apply a particular law to them. And at times it can be, well, really this could go in any number of directions, but you need to be consistent. So now you got the rule, okay? And you can go through literally pages of that. Sometimes it's interesting. I remember it was Haroeh, which is, it has a whole section on the interpretation of dreams. And it goes through one dream after another, and with their interpretations, with an interesting stories included in it. The first time I learned that, I found it to be fascinating, and I did basically the whole thing in one sitting. It was really several pages, and enjoyed it immensely. Sometime later, it seemed to be a bit tedious, just explaining one dream after another. It was basically a categorization. I had some hesitancy, though, whether I should actually celebrate my completion of Shas in the Daf Yomi, because I was studying it in this fashion. So I asked a number of friends about it, and they all said that I should reckon myself as having completed Shas based on this. Now I have completed a number of Masechtas where I did go through every page, discussing it with a chavrusa, with situations of varying degrees of quality. But the problem you run into with the Gemara is that you have to accept the idea that there are certain things that you are not going to get at this point, and that you must return to it, chazara. And maybe you'll get it on the second time, or it may be something that may take many, many years to understand it, or you may never understand it. These are all different aspects of it. Therefore, if you just simply go to the shiur and sit there and listen to the rabbi, and you will have many people doing that, especially in places like Geula and Meisharim, okay, you are going to get something, and if you keep doing that, you will gather more information. So that is what I'm doing right now. I've started again, and this time I'm using sources, Daf Hachayim, Daf Notes, which stick more closely to the texts, and it's stimulated my interest enough that, or my understanding enough that things that were actually painfully boring, at this point I can see what they're doing and see their value. Now, this is certainly not the whole Gemara. Certain parts of it, as I said, can be very fascinating and very valuable. Okay, another part of it is, a major part of it is basically stories of the righteous that are meant to be exemplary, how we can lead our own lives, or to explain a point of law, or to just understand what these people were like. Okay, I also made a siyum. Now, what a siyum is a party, and celebrating the siyum, the completion. Siyum literally means completion or finishing of a sacred book. And if you're talking about the Talmud, you have a special kaddish that you say for it. And I said it, and I talked to one of my rabbis who said I should say it for for the Shas Bavli included in that, rather than the name of a section of the Mishnah or a tractate of the Gemara. I said it, and what happened was you get contradictory points of view and feelings about this. When I would tell people, on the street, friends of mine or in shul, they'd say, "Gosh, you should make a party with a meal with meat." Then I'd say, "Well, I'm having something at such and such a shul, it's Pinsk Carlin," and they say, "Would you like? You're invited." They say, "I'll try to come," but I'm not making any promises. Some of them do, some of them don't. That's the inconsistency. So what I do is I will make it generally after religious services. In this case, I was intending to do it after Mincha, the afternoon service. And when I showed up at Pinsk Carlin, they have a kollel there, and I know the people are there. And I have my bags of goodies, of cookies, and wine, and whiskey. And they ask me, you can see on the person's face that he has something to say. And they say, "What's happening?" And I tell them that I completed the Babylonian Talmud, Daf Yomi. And they immediately burst into song, Ashrehu, happy is he who labors in Torah. And they started dancing. They were extremely enthusiastic, and they had me say the special Kaddish immediately, and they kind of delayed Mincha, and then they had Mincha, and then we had the cookies and the drinks, and what also struck me is that there were children there, like 7, 8 years old, who were greatly happy as well, and partook of the cookies with great enthusiasm, more so than they would take if you were just simply giving them a snack. So I was quite happy that, proud that my accomplishment made an impression on my friends and an impression on the younger generation, and they gave me good wishes. The traditional wish for this is, just like you've completed this, that you should start and complete other sacred books as well. Thank you.